All right, welcome back to the garage. Today's a big day. I don't know, every day around here seems like a big day, but today especially because I want to be putting the dash on, welding the top dash, as well as these cowl shoulders. I've got them setting off over here. They need some prep work. This whole area needs a little prep work. But first, monumental occasion, this cross bracing can go away because I've got the floor welded in, I've got the firewall welded in. I think we're all good to cut out this bracing. Nothing should move from here on out. So let's get to doing that. Okay, I got all that cross bracing cut out of there, and I got the spots where it was welded into place all smoothed up. I got a little excited with the lightning torch over there and ended up gouging a hole there, a big one in that side, and then another little one over there. That's okay, I can weld those up. For now though, I'm going to get this dash fitting up here the way that I want it, as well as I'm going to fit and fiddle with these Tulip panels, get those fit on here the way that I like it, and then I'll blow it all apart, epoxy everything that's going to be covered up, and then weld it into place. I've got the old cowl and dash over here so that I can see where the plug welds should go, where the lap welds should go, and as well where the holes for the windshield retainer clips should go. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of that. Let's get to it. Okay, I scuffed up the cowl here. Eventually I want to put epoxy primer on the whole thing, but I think for right now I just want to focus on where that dash goes and get it fit up here and welded in. So got that scuffed up, ready for some epoxy primer across the top there. I'll also throw some on this area here where that welds up. I also poked holes, punched all the holes for the plug welds in the dash panel here and scuffed it up good. I'm going to clean it all up and lay down some epoxy, let that dry overnight, and then I should be ready to fit this on there and weld it up in the morning. Okay, I've spread epoxy primer on the cowl here where the dash is going to sit on it. I also did the top of the lower dash and the rest of the upper dash. It's looking real good. One thing that I noticed about the new cowl panel versus the old cowl panel is it's got three pieces of metal to it. There's an upper section, lower section, which is back here, and then as well there's a support piece right here, which is kind of like a little piece of angle iron that just reinforces the seam between the two pieces. The old cowl panel did not have that and became a breeding ground for rust. Moisture would either come up from underneath here or get in from the top. Anyway, it began rusting that out, which ended up rusting the dash out and made a terrible mess. I'm trying to prevent that, so hence the epoxy primer, as well as where these panels here make a seam. I'm gonna run a bead of seam sealer down across there and try and keep the moisture out of this area as best I can. Here's what I've got for seam sealer. That's just a brush on seam sealer, should do the job. First, before I go spreading that on there, I want to test fit this guy up there, get it on there, mark out where all the plug welds are going to be, and then I can come through and wipe off the epoxy primer in those areas. Then I can throw the seam sealer on there, then I can throw the dash back on there, and then I can get to welding that on there. So let's do all of that. Okay, I've cleaned off the epoxy primer where the plug welds are going to be, and I ran some seam sealer across that seam right there. Let's slap that dash on here and get to weld her up. Well, I almost got the dash all welded in. Unfortunately, I ran out of wire and I'm just about out of gas. Today's Sunday, so I'm gonna have to wait till tomorrow to do any more welding. I guess I'll have to move on to other tasks. Here's a little close-up of my welds. There, and the plug welds. I tried to mimic the factory dash panel where the welds were on it and how it was welded for the most part. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and grind some of these down, grind down the plug welds and a little bit on those lap welds, but then I'll move on and do something else. Okay, I got those plug welds all ground down. They're nice and smooth, looking good. I'm going to move on to clean and rust. There's a little bit of surface rust in these cowl shoulders, so I'm just wire wheeling that out. You can see what I've gone over. A little wire wheel, a little clean and strip. There's still some areas that I just can't quite get to. So once I've mechanically removed as much as I possibly can, I'm going to go over those with the fast etch and get the rest of that rust out of there so it dies and goes away. I'll show you what that area used to look like on this side. This one here hasn't been done yet, but I'll get there. Just working on it. Okay, I got that all wire wheeled as best I could. Now I'm going to jump over and hose that down with some fast etch, Eastwood fast etch, and let it dissolve the rust as best as it can. Okay, after an hour of working the fast etch into the this area here with the Scotch-Brite pad on both sides, it's looking real good. I'm going to neutralize this with some acetone, wipe it down real good, and then I'll be ready to move on. Here's the driver's side all cleaned up. I neutralized the fast etch, and it's looking real good. Like, that looks like brand new metal in there. Whenever I'm using the fast etch, I like to use a drip pan underneath it because it runs down here and drips onto the floor, and it'll actually etch the floor. And another reason that I do that is because you can reuse the stuff. And so while I spray a little bit on there, and then I take a Scotch-Brite pad and I dip it in the pan, and then I can redistribute that same fast etch and use it over and over and over again, and not have to use a whole bunch spraying it on the panel every time. But keep it wet for about an hour, and scrub it and scrub it and scrub it, and then that's how it turns out. Looks pretty good. Pretty happy with it. I mean, there's still a little bit kind of in the corners, but I don't think it's going to be any real issue. I'll need to clean this up some more and scuff it before I spread epoxy primer on it. But there it is so far. Let's move on. And we'll move on to these Tulip panels here. I've test fit them and made sure that they fit up the way that I like them, and I've marked them out where I want plug welds to go. I've got to punch holes in them and then clean off the old paint and primer that's currently inside of them, so that I can epoxy the inside of them, so that whenever I close it up I don't have to worry about it ever again. I was using this punch here to punch holes, and it's great because it's got this nice deep throat to it. However, it does take some effort and it takes a little while. So I picked up this pneumatic punch here, which I think is going to work great. However, it puts a hole pretty close to the edge of your piece of metal, but I think in this situation that's not going to be an issue. So I'm going to pull that out, punch holes in this, clean it up, get it ready for epoxy. Let's do that. Well, that was only about 100 times faster. Look, it's all holy like the Pope. That's clean and strip time. Let's get to it. All right, got those all stripped down and cleaned up on the inside parts anyway. I'm not going to worry too much about the outside, because I can do that after they're on the car. Now I need to scuff up the inside of this cowl. I've done some scuffing on it. Last time I was spreading epoxy, I had some left over, so I spread it on the inside here. I'm going to sand that just a little bit, scuff everything up real good, and then I should be ready to start coating this all in epoxy and getting it ready to weld those guys on. Let's do that. All right, got this all cleaned up and degreased. Got that all scuffed up in there and degreased as well. Let's have an epoxy party. Let's mix it up and do it. Okay, I got this all coated in epoxy. It's looking real good. Epoxy primer everywhere that I can reach. Tried to get it up in there as best I could. I may do a little more touch up around those openings, but I'll wait and do that later whenever it's on the rotisserie and I can kind of reach up in there a little bit better. Show you what I used for tools. I'm just brushing this stuff on, so just a paint brush. I had this little skinny brush taped to this stick so I could reach up in there, and then as well I took an old paint brush. I cut the bristles down and cut the handle off so that I could reach up underneath here and just kind of get get right in around these openings a bit. But I tried to use this roller, but it doesn't fit in there as well as I thought it would. But I got it all epoxied, and I've got this cowl shoulder here, Tulip panel clamped on. I'm marking it out where the plug welds are going to be. I'll pull it off here. I'll clean up around where those welds are going to be, so that I've got nice bare metal to weld to. Here's the inside of the other one here. It's all coated epoxy as well. So once I get this one marked out, I'll throw that one on there, mark it out, come over it with a clean and strip disc and just clean off that, and then I'll be ready to weld this on there. So let's get to going. Here's a quick look at this other side. It's looking real good. I like it. I've gone through and wiped off the epoxy in all the places that I'm going to be welding on it. I figured before I get too excited about welding, I should throw some seam sealer on here. Let's turn this around. We'll brush on seam sealer. I'm going to throw that on just kind of around in here where this seam is. There's a seam across here. These corners are all bent in, so that like it's stamped, so there's no need for seam sealer in there. But yeah, get those places all seam sealed up, and then I can start welding. Let's do that. Okay, got this all seam sealed. It's looking real good. I'll do the rest of that seam later whenever I can reach it a little bit better. When the car's on the rotisserie and I can get it up on its side. Now is the moment of truth. Let's weld them babies on there. All right, she's starting to look like a car again. Every time I work on this thing, it looks better and better. I got the cowl shoulders both sides all welded on, ground down. There's still a little bit of touch-up needed, but I'm real happy with it. I think it looks great. Then I've got to come through, oh, careful, and run seam sealer all along the seams on the edges of these guys here, all the way down. That way it's sealed up nice, and then I don't have rust issues like I used to have down in there. But I think this is a great place to end this video. I've actually accomplished some stuff, so that's awesome. I'm gonna end it here and take a break and sit around and think about what to do next. Anyway, thanks for watching. Cheers.